All right. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fitness Manager Report. My name is Stacy Alden. I'm here with Michael Piercy, and we are excited to talk all about circuit training. It's not something that's been around for a long time, but there's so many ways to accomplish a circuit training experience with clients, making sure everyone, is safe and moving effectively, and also creating an experience that's fun and dynamic. And Michael, owner and creator of his own studio, has been doing this type of format for a long time. He presented on it at IDEA and other conferences. So I felt he was the best person to bring on to our podcast to share more about circuit training. So exciting. So we're going to focus a lot on creation, implementation, and then coaching in general. So as we always do, I'm just going to dive in, but I'll share, more about Michael in the show notes below, so you can connect with him and check what he does out, check out what he does as well. But our first question for Michael is, what are the tips that you would give to ensure that a manager shares with instructors when it comes to creating exceptional circuit experiences?
I think the key word, if we really start off the conversation, the key word is, I always say, what if you wrote it in a sentence on a piece of paper, what would you underline? And the underlying thing is the experience, right? So that's really what people come for. If I gave you a sheet of paper and I wrote down 10 exercises on it, be like, Stacy, here's these 10 exercises. You could do those on your own. People don't show up for, the exercises. They show up for the experience that comes in within the exercises. So if I think of that, it's what can we do to build an experience for people? Create it creatively and things like that. So I think one of the biggest tips is to be able to free people up. We like to do a lot of different circuits, especially on the general population form. If we think of creativity, we do themed circuits, and we talked about a little bit about like the idea presentation. A lot of that covers a lot of things in that realm of how do we create subject matter, a themed workout. If there is, football, can we do a Sunday morning workout or things like that for football? Can we do something for, Thanksgiving, stuff like that? How can we create unique experiences for the people who come in to do our circuits in whatever format? If that's, a class format for us, our major population is athletes. So can we create a unique experience for them in that regard?
Love it. Yeah, experience. I think what we think in circuit training sometimes is that, the music isn't as important, or, the energy isn't as important. People are just moving in stations and they're kind of doing their own workout. But you do a great job of, like you said, making sure people are meeting each other. Maybe there's a theme to a circuit experience. That's awesome. That's a great tip. And then what about when it comes to executing and implementing an exceptional circuit experience? Because there's so much going on at once. What are some of the things you do to organize everyone and start and end on time?
So one of the things that I really would say that is called the Fitness Manager Podcast, right? And for me, before I started this business, I was a fitness manager for Town Sports International for what feels like 1,000 years. I think the best thing to do is, for us, we want to create the experience. And how do we do that? It's probably not the best analogy to use, but if we look at McDonald's, what is McDonald's great for, right? McDonald's is great in a lot of regards, but one of the things that it's such a safety zone, right? Because if you were in London, your Big Mac's going to taste the same as it does in New Jersey. And what makes it is the system, really. So one of the things that you can ensure for the experience is templating. So it's one of the things I think we've been good at is all of our classes. Any class that you take from an adult perspective, there's a format for that. But if we create a format, we create a template, we can take some of those things off of the plate of the instructor. And I always say, the minute that I can get out within its circuit experience, right? There's so many different things. You just mentioned them, like you have music. We just were talking off about people coming in late. You have people who, have different things that they might be dealing with, injuries, stuff like that. So many different things to manage. One of the things that we want to do is be able to free up the coaches to be able to actually coach and then be able to breathe energy into the format. So if I can take a lot of those things off of their plate that, such as the programming, things like that, simplify a lot of those things, and create templates and formats for them, so that when you come in, it's not like, hey, I'm trying to, make it up in the car on the way in. I'm trying to do these different things. If we have a specific format for those different things, I can free the instructor up to breathe more of themselves, and they can have fun in the format. One of the things we know as instructors, and you know this, you're huge on the conference scene as well, and coaching groups of people, is that the energy you give, that's going to be returned to you in a lot of ways. So if I can be in a space where I feel comfortable and deliver, my best energy, it's going to a lot of times lead to the best experience. So yeah, there's a lot of different variables. So one of the things I really like to say is for people to try to come up with different templates and formats that you can use to kind of systemize the training or systemize the circuit creation.
I love that. I love that. So when you say templates, do you actually create the exercises that they're doing, or is it kind of like, here are the blocks, here's what we're asking you to do, you get to plug in your own exercises, but they need to be, a pull exercise or a push exercise? How do you create those templates for your coaches?
That's an amazing question. I mean, the thing that somebody taught me about programming years and years ago that really kind of, I wouldn't say simplify, because programming can be complex in a lot of regards. It depends on what we're going for, right? Or who we're working with. But the one thing that, we try to use is everything goes into a box, right? Everything will go into a box. So when we think about templating and formatting, it's like you said. So we might have, there's a cardio exercise that needs to go here. There's a push exercise that needs to go here. There's a pull exercise that needs to go here. Now, what I want to do is let you be creative in that regards, but we know that, hey, if this is a push exercise, all of a sudden a box jump doesn't go there.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, yeah. So we have something we're trying to deliver, because what happens is we don't want to happen. We want Stacy to have a great class. But we don't want Mike's class to suck because Stacy went completely off the map and just went completely did her own thing, right? And then I just love Stacy, so my class is great. But I hate Mike because Mike didn't do 16 burpees and where pushes and pulls should have been in the one class. So to simplify kind of the explanation is, if we have a resistance class, we want to be able to make sure that just to back it up a little bit, everything on our schedule, we try to design it to work together, which means that if you came in and Stacy is our number one client, number one member, she took every class throughout the week. It's not like you got hit on top of hit on top of hit on top of hit. It's designed to create a balance. So each format's a little bit different. So in a perfect world, if I had that client that went through every single day of the week, it would give them some balance to their training. So we want each format to fit that. So when we look at those boxes that we line, that it could be, hey, in this class, we start off with, a cardiovascular exercise, then we roll through resistance, come back to that. There might be a core exercise built in here. But when I look at that, what I want to do is, we're not looking to create robots. The coaches that we have, they're great, and they are experienced in the field. They have exercise science backgrounds. They're certified, things like that. So they may need direction, but they have the knowledge to put things where they need to go. So we want to be able to give them the freedom within the format. But we don't want to go outside the realm and just, throw caution to the wind and just say, hey, we're going to do whatever it is. But in most cases, that makes things very easy for them, because if I look at it, and if you had, these exercises to really just plug into, it's really plug and play. And it makes it very simplistic for me. And I know maybe, hey, I did that. We did this on Monday, we did this on Tuesday, and all that's kind of sketched out. Now, all of a sudden, I can come in and I can just really be myself, and I can coach. I understand, I have direction, and I'm not trying to figure it out as I go along. And I think a lot of times with circuits, it's like, you talked about the circuit mastery course. And one of the things we do is, first thing you do is you come in, we create a circuit based on what people just kind of, throw an exercise here, throw an exercise here, throw an exercise here. And it's so funny at the end, because it's like, that was the worst circuit we ever did. And everybody laughs, right? But it's the way a lot of people create their programming. It's like,
Yeah.
I just got this. I got this. I got this. I got this. Let's do this. Oh, yeah, this is great. Let's do a kettlebell swing here. Let's do this here. You know what I mean? And then it's great. All the exercises are great, but exercise in the vacuum gets you nowhere, right? It's just like, hey, we got, that's why the wonder of social media is so great. You got all these random exercises, right? But it's like, what context are we doing these in?
I love it. Well, I love how you mentioned like how sometimes that comparison between instructors can get foggy. Like, yeah, it's
Hmm.
similar with like if you have a 30-minute circuit class and someone keeps going over on that time, and then someone tries to sub for that instructor and they're like, well, so and so always goes 5 over and does like a
Hmm.
Tabata or something. And it's like, well, you just ruined it for that poor other instructor who's doing it correctly. So, yeah, holding your team accountable. And I love that you are able to use your team, like the knowledge they have to just choose the exercises. And what's cool is you could use that formula. Let's say, you have a brand new coach who's super green. Maybe
Hmm.
you give them more of the exercises, and then over time, as you see them understand the format, they can start to plug it in themselves. So that like progression of knowledge is so, so cool.
Yeah, because what I feel like, and for us is, I think it works because we try to eliminate, you know, within, creating everything, we try to eliminate most of the things. So we have clocks that you can program that are programmed for each class, and then people can get those timers or whatever it is. But each individual class, all they have to do is really hit something on their phone. This class goes, they don't have to worry about watching the clock. Um, the one thing we can do as, fitness managers, owners, things like that, is to try to eliminate as much, exterior
Yep.
distraction from the coaching, because that
Mhm.
once I can get down to straight up coaching, the experience starts to get much better. And I think that when you go, what you just mentioned is so important. Like, we can talk about circuit creation, but there's something to be said for, hey, can we create uniform standards, right? Uniform standards and boundaries is important. It's
Mhm.
one thing we talk about here. We try to say, hey, everything starts and ends at the same time. Because like you said, at the end of the day, experience, right? Because you have one person that decides, hey, people are late, so we're gonna go 10 minutes over. And you think you're doing the right thing,
Yeah.
but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, you're not taking care of your teammate, because the next thing you know, Mike's the jerk because he's like, oh
Yeah.
no, I gotta stop, right?
Yep.
He's not going 10 minutes over because I was late.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but really that's what it is. It's how many, with new coaches and things like that,
Mhm.
it is important, because maybe we might have to give them, the exercise at the beginning, and then they start, but it helps them to understand what goes where.
Mhm.
Then, eh, in our regard, what it does is it helps them learn programming a lot,
Yes.
because
Yes.
so many times it's like, all right, you have people who would think that, like, if I destroy everybody, that meant it was a good class.
Yeah. 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 Hard
Like,
does not always mean better.
no, like, they should be crawling out or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, um, for instance, one of our classes is game day. So for game day, it uses the whole facility. Is probably about 10 to 12 stations, and it's really a lot of athletic based activity for an adult athlete, right? Which is great. But one of the things in our format is not to have, you might have a strength station, you have a stability, maybe you can have something that's, a metabolic, what might be something like a mountain climber or something like that. You might have an athletic, something that's like skaters or things like that, that's designed to get them engaged actively. But what we don't want to do is stack cardio on top of cardio on top of cardio on top of cardio, and then
Mhm.
all of a sudden expect them to do, strength exercises properly, and
Yeah.
because we destroyed them halfway down to, the station. It's like,
Yeah.
we want to challenge people, but we don't want to, like, kill them. So
Mhm.
at the end of the day, killing people doesn't, make for a great experience either, all the time.
No, I love it. I love it. So yeah, as managers, like you said, if you're hearing that, set those expectations on, keeping your team. I like how you said it. It's not, you're kind of letting down your teammates when you think that you're benefiting, yourself and making those choices and decisions that aren't aligned with expectations. And being able to hold your team accountable to that because you'll hold on to clients for longer. They won't get injured, which is really good. It sounds like your programming is really well designed where, like you said, if they're coming to classes at the same time throughout the week. I think that's something most facilities should think about instead of just having a generic circuit class on the schedule. How can you,
Mhm.
refine it a little bit and make it maybe more upper body focused on one day. And then if they come on Wednesday, it's a lower body focused class. So they can kind of find that balance. Love all of that. What about personality traits? So we've kind of talked about like holding the team accountable and the format. But again, the personality of this, it's more of like a coach, I feel like. When I see someone in a circuit class, they need to be paying attention to a lot of things going on at once, but they also need to be able to communicate super clearly and really fast to get people moving, or otherwise they're standing there watching this coach, right? Like demonstrate
Mhm.
10 exercises. How do you help your coach like lead the class in a really efficient and effective way?
You know what? And this, you let me know, we could get, this could be a really involved kind of question. The interesting thing about it, I don't know how many people have ever seen the movie Hitch, right? So Hitch, one of my favorite movies of all time, but the opening line, Will Smith is just the coolest dude in the world. And I'm convinced he got it on one take. But it's like, if you're funny, be funny. You know what I mean? If you're not, don't be. You know what I mean? Whatever you got. My dad used to say this one line when back before when I was, first started in baseball. And, I wanted to be a home run hitter, but I'm a fast leadoff guy, right? So he used to say the good Lord it didn't give everybody everything, but he gave everybody something. So you got to learn to work what you got to get what you want.
Oh, I
And
love that.
at the end of the day, it's so true when it comes to coaching in a group atmosphere, whatever, because it's like you have so many different personalities that for us, when we first saw whoever our instructor hero was, you thought you had to be like that.
Yep.
It's like, all
Yep.
right. So for me, it's like, you could watch a whole bunch of instructors and one guy's over the top crazy, but that just may not be your thing.
Yeah.
You may be more calm and, and you might be more technical specific. You might be. So I think the personality traits is that what kind of, mirror all worlds is one, you got to care. I think that caring is a super important trait for anybody that's going to coach it, whether you're going to coach athletes, whether you're going to coach adults, whether you're going to coach whatever. I think that if I'll have new coaches in, even at conferences, this is the funny thing. I have people come up and they'll say, you have all these certifications. I want to have as many as you have. And I look at them, I'm like, why would you want that? I don't like,
I don't want that for you.
it's
Yeah.
like, I just genuinely love this, but it's so much wasted paper just because back in the day you thought you had to have everything because you were trying to work with everybody and do whatever.
Yep.
If I had to go back and do whatever, I would have found a population that I really want to be involved with and aimed all of my education and everything towards being able to help those people the best I can. And so when you say personality traits, I think you really got to be passionate. For us, we're athlete obsessed. That's if you said, hey, we're athlete obsessed. So everything, if you come into an adult class, you're an adult athlete. You're going to see some things, and the best, comments we would get from people is like, oh, I saw LeBron James doing the same exercise I was doing in class yesterday.
That's awesome.
And that's, so it's like, I didn't think I could do that stuff. Or somebody that says, oh, I remember in gym class, I used to shy away from the side and not participate. I think the personality traits that go across worlds is you have to be engaging. All right. You have to care about it. And then it has to be like, one of those things where they ask we have these cliche questions, but who would you work with if you wouldn't get paid a dime?
Yeah.
So it's like that excitement, that engagement and things like that. And then after that, it's pouring whatever what are your strengths and weaknesses as an instructor, right? So for me, I think it's amazing. Great coaches, right? But for me, I'm one way. What my coach right now that's outside doing middle school groups, he's amazing, he's great, but his personality, he's so much calm, he's much more patient and more calm than I am a lot of times, so it matches up. And it's like being if you ever play for a sports team, anybody that's played with teams, you always have you have a head coach and you have other coaches, but there's always like the other coach that maybe you're like, this dude's a jerk. You know what I mean? But they
Yeah.
go to the other coach and now it's, this is because it's a balance, right?
There's like a good cop, bad cop.
And
Like,
then
yeah.
not only that, but I think you want to have each coach be able to use their strengths. And if
Yeah.
you have a whole bunch of people with the same strength, that means you have a whole bunch of people with the same weaknesses, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
not good, right, for building a team. So it's like when we add now, if we're looking to add something, we're looking to add somebody who balances out everything. So it's like, hey, maybe somebody might be the most amazing programmer ever. I
Mhm.
want them to be able to unleash that in here. Somebody may be the most, have be the most introspective person, yoga-esque, internally focused. Then because for me, I like high octane. So it's
Yeah.
hard to get me to slow down and do, let's talk about breathing for 30 minutes. You know what I mean? So you need somebody that's,
Yeah.
like, hey, listen, we all need to slow down and we need to go through these things. So it's a roundabout response, but the best personality traits, and we talked about there's some things that travel all worlds, right? That you need to have from a generalized perspective. They need to be engaged. You need to have great energy. And there's a lot of things we can unlock, nowadays, where your energy needs to be something that, that's a good energy. And I think that comes from being passionate about what you do. And I think that travels across each and every single instructor. For me, I don't see like a place for you coaching if you don't feel like your passion or your energy. But for the most part, after we get from those really, traits that travel all worlds, then we can get into like strengths and weaknesses.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And you're so right. When I am a talker in my classes. I talk so much, like probably too much. If I were to record my class and listen to myself, I'd be like, shut up and stop talking. But then there's a coach that I've worked with for a long time and he coaches completely different than me. He's much more quiet. He like tells you what to do, gives you all the alignment cues, everything, and then just shuts up. And he's very and then people are really they're able to kind of really focus on their body and like he benefits them in that regard.
Mhm.
So you're so right. There's those different personalities, but I'm glad you addressed too the certification obsession. People think it's almost an easy way to feel like you accomplished something
Mhm.
by getting that additional education, but you're also spending money. But the hardest part is like refining your craft, like you said,
Mhm.
refining your ability to do what you do. um, you think, we can all improve every day.
And and if I can interject something
Yeah.
on the back end of that,
Yeah.
um, and it's Fitness Manager podcast, right? And we're talking about fitness managers. The one thing about it is for us, um, I was a fitness manager for many years, and you move into the aspect of own, which is it's similar in a lot of ways, and it travels along the same roads, and it's building teams and setting up coaches for success. But the one thing that we have to look at introspectively, to use that word again, is to be able to look at, because so many of us are coaching at the same time as doing things like that, and um there is an institutionalized jealousy that we have to get over, the fact that like
Mhm.
I'll always say this about in some aspects, especially when you look at our field as a whole. You can't be the head coach and play center field.
Yep.
So the thing is, you got to be able to say, if we're trying to build a team and setting people up for success, is to be able to be willing to set people up for success. You got to be willing to. So many so many people want their coaches to do well, but don't want them to do better than you. And you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You have to
and
give them everything. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, because what happens is you have to be able to at some point say, because for me, for a coach to be great, that's amazing. Because guess what? Then I don't have to teach everything.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry when I'm away at, a conference for 3-4 days that people are like, oh, all hell broke loose or whatever it is. It's amazing. And I think one of the best quotes, and it's another cliche quote, and it's like, all right, well, what if I teach them everything and they leave? Well, what if you teach them nothing and they stay? And
Yes.
it's the most
Yes.
cliche quote, but it's so true.
It's
So
so
I think,
true.
yeah, I think that for us, a lot of times we look at all these traits and the different things, and we're trying to find people. But a lot of times we need to set people up for success and then be able to get out of the way so that we can allow them to be successful. And I
Mhm.
think that it's a hard conversation to have with ourselves. It's like, are you, I could want to control the formatting and things like that, but there's some stuff that I have to be like, all right, well, I got to trust them to be able to do it, and then have to genuinely want for them to be successful. You know what I mean? That's in a lot of places, that's a very difficult, internal conversation for them to have. And it's like, the question is, do you really want them to be successful? So if in a lot of ways you have to do that, and that's that kind of internal discussion that you have to be able to say, all right, well, are they being successful? Am I in the way? Am I doing everything I can to put them in a position to be successful? And at the end of the day, making sure that that's taking place.
I'm so happy you addressed that, because a lot of us who go, like you said, your evolution was similar to my evolution. You start in a certain position, and then you grow into leadership, and you're used to being the good one, like the good instructor, and then
But it's hard.
yeah, and you don't want to be the only good one. So like, I
No.
love that so much. It is so important, I think, to humble yourself as a leader and recognize it's time to pass the torch even brighter, like for those people who are behind you, like ready to crush it.
And then you might have, the thing is, you have 2 stars now. So
Yeah.
now it's, makes it
Yep.
easier, because when I'm bringing another coach, I know that what they're learning, in the proper way, and things are good, and stuff like that. So, it's just it's a it's an interesting conversation to have sometimes.
It is,
Can't
yes.
be the head coach and a place in the field. You gotta,
No.
if you're the owners aren't playing quarterback. You gotta get your quarterback, you gotta get a team, and then, kind of let them run the plays.
I love it. I love it so much. Anything else, Michael, about circuit that we didn't maybe address that you want to share with the audience? Just curious.
No, I think that the one thing about it is, just to remember that we talk about formatting and programming and stuff like that, and a lot of people, they may tune in looking for that, and I think that is super important. But the one thing about it is, when it comes to all those things, I think that what we want to hit on is that whatever we're doing from a format perspective, programming perspective, it's just a map. At the end of the day, when you have a map or whatever it is, growing up for us, we've been like dating ourselves, when you used to have like books, map quests and stuff like that, right? It's just it's a sheet of paper, which is not anymore, but it's a sheet of paper, and doesn't mean you can't go off the Wawa and somewhere else in the middle. Whatever programming is just on paper, right? It's exercise on the paper. Whatever you do, or whatever you, as a coach, whatever you breathe is life into that, So the more you can do to pretty much eliminate distractions in that process, allows a coach and instructor to breathe life into that, to put themselves into that. And I think that, and it doesn't mean in any shape or means that, for us, we love this so much that we would love no more than to talk about the different rep schemes, set schemes, how many, seconds of rest should be in the creation of this, how many, and all that stuff is super important. But it's very, that stuff you can easily get right, I think, because it's very much more absolute. The human aspect of it is really, the part that really makes it go. It's the engine, it's the fuel, it's the gasoline that makes it really, turn into something that somebody says, they want to tell somebody, and they want to bring somebody. And that's really what you want when you start thinking that your circuit programming. So at the end of the day, it's really to focus on the different ways that we could eliminate, as fitness managers, different distractions within creating circuits that allow them to be able to breathe, allow the coaches to breathe themselves into it, to breathe their energy, their obsession, their passion, and things like that.
Love it. Love it. Those are fantastic final words.
Oh,
So what's actually perfect is this podcast, I feel like, really relates well. So the next podcast in September, I'll be bringing in Amanda Young, who was also a presenter at IDEA. And she talked about developing signature formats, which is basically what, Michael's doing already. He's built circuit training formats that are very signature and unique to his facility. So I know so many of us are trying to do that more and more. And I've already spoken about it in previous podcasts with other guests, but the difference is that she actually brings more the personal element to the signature format. So very similar to what Michael was already telling us about, like, the personalities and the different types of coaching. She talks about like the different types of communicating to your clients exercises. Some of us are more technical, some of us are more emotional, and how to tap into that with your team. So this was a perfect lead into that.
Love it.
Not even really intentional, but that podcast will go live on September 14th. Um, Thank you so much again, Michael, for all of your wonderful advice and insight on circuit training and all that you do for the industry, even while being an owner. Like, how you do it all, I don't know. I really don't know. And I
Thank
know
you.
there's class happening in your facility right now, right? Like,
I got good people. You know, the coaches are great. So,
I love it.
I got no complaints. They're, world class and, everything they do, but they get, that's why I can talk about some of the things, it's learning. We're all trying to learn and get better as we go and, help each other grow. And I appreciate you and all you do as well. And, so much respect for you. And especially, with family
Yeah,
stuff and
no,
everything
baby
else.
on the way. I
Baby
know.
on
That's
the way,
actually,
send
yeah,
you up
great
to
time. Yeah, great timing to say after September, there will be no podcast for a little bit.
no
Just so
podcast,
everyone knows, has expectations.
no podcast from the hospital. I got
Yeah, exactly. I know. If I scheduled one, I'd make it happen, and we don't want that. So,
I got
so
it.
thank you again, and thank you everyone for listening. As always, hit the subscribe button on YouTube if you're watching this, you know, with your eyes. And if you're listening to this on any podcast, then definitely try to follow along, like the podcast, so we know this is content that you're really enjoying, and we'll bring more to you. And thank you again.